Okay, hello everybody. Hopefully you guys are having a good day. My name is Eddie, and I'm doing another one of my little stand-up videos where I just kind of go over code and talk about it while I'm working through stuff. I've done a little bit of development since our last one. In our last one, we kind of made these cards, and I said that I would hook up that into our backend, which I've done here. So I'm just gonna kind of go over it. I have this little map function, and it pretty much goes over an array and maps everything into this object, or this thing called a kube config, an item, I guess is what we can call it. And it also indexes over it, so it'll go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I'm actually not sure if it starts at 0 or if it starts at 1. We can probably look here if we go into the components and look at here. Okay, yeah, indexing starts at 0 because we're programmers and that's what we do, right? And basically we have the card title and the description and those little info things, but instead of the default text that we used to have, now we can access this kubeconf item that has the things for each of those elements in the array. So when it's at element 0, it's going to have the data for element 0 and element 1 and so on and so forth. Right now, they're actually all the same, but in the future these are going to be different configurations. So kubeconf, and we get the config server and the config user, and we also get the label. Right now there is no description, so we might want to think about adding that extra thing in. So I think I'm going to do that in this video. I'm just going to add a description, and I'm also going to add a way to add a label just to our form, and then the backend code to do all of that stuff. So without further ado, let's get into that. I kind of think that I'm going to change the format of how I do things in this series too. Before, I kind of just rambled on and coded, and it ended up that my last video was 40 minutes long, and I think it's just a little bit too long to kind of go over things and keep you guys' attention. If you guys like that kind of long form stuff, maybe I'll do some live streams and just upload the VODs or do something like that somehow, maybe on a separate channel or someplace else where it's not gonna completely destroy the way that YouTube recommends my videos. But for now, what I think I'm going to just end up doing is I'm going to get through the feature as quickly as humanly possible, and then maybe give an explainer an explanation every kind of iteration, or when I feel like I'm at a chunk where the code is good. Alright, so with that out of the way, I'll probably just fast forward through me working through this, and then we'll get to the explanation. Cool. Okay. That said, I'm still going to kind of talk through stuff, and maybe if I stop at a point where something is interesting, I'll talk to you guys for a little bit. I won't let you guys hang in and dry the entire time. Alright, so basically what I just did there was I added 2 new input fields just by modifying the thing here to get a place where I can add a description and also a cluster label. So I still need to go to the actual place where we send that data over, and then also where I accept that in the API. So let's do that real quick. To do that, we just have to go back a little bit over to the kubeconf action, and we have a place where we post our kube config. We also have an actual kube configuration Zod object that we need to edit here. So here, all we're doing is we're just adding 2 new things to our validator. 2 new Z strings. I'm not gonna do any kind of enforcement on that length or anything like that just yet, but we could in the future add a min and max length to these, and it would be all okay. Cool, that one was a little bit more intense, but it's pretty easy what I did here. So I'm just grabbing the data from our form, the label and the description, the things we just added. I'm doing a quick check just to make sure that it is a string and that we're also not an empty string. Our validator should kind of do that, even though well, our validator would do that if we had min and stuff like that here and just said, hey, we want a string of at least 1, but I'm doing it here for now. Not sure why, maybe I'll change that in the future. And then we just added those new fields into our validator, and that's all we actually have to do on this end, because all of that stuff just gets piped right into our call over to our post request. Now we just need to go over to the API and set it up to take in this cluster label and cluster description. Right, so to do that, and it actually already takes in a cluster label, I believe. Or actually doesn't take in the cluster. Well, you'll see. So let's go over to our API. See, we get this config label, but it should come from the kube config request. Okay, so I think we're ready to do our first test on this. So what we ended up doing is that we added the config label and the config description here to the new config. So when we get that data from our request, we're just adding them onto the database object. And I can also, I think I explained this already, but just in case I did forget, we added 2 new fields to the request that we're getting from the API. So when we send data to the API as a request, we added the cluster label field. Actually, the cluster label field was always there, but we added the cluster label field wasn't always there. We added it, and we also added the description. And now that I'm thinking about it, we also need to add this to the response, and that is config description, and it's a string. And we can also go over to our database. We added a new column in our database called config description, which will be the description that we're going to store into our database. All right, we got all that. One thing that I'm going to do is just make sure that I'm in the right place. Trying to remove the database and save this. and everything looks fine. So now actually if we look at our platform, actually our data is gonna be, yeah, we're never gonna get any data. So let's make some data. Our cluster label, cube cluster is a home cluster used for dev work. And we need an auth token. I don't have one off the top of my head, so we'll just grab this one. And we'll browse a config file and we'll submit. It doesn't look like we got a good... Uh-oh. Users confs. Nothing, but when we created, we got an unprocessable entry. Uh-oh. Let's just go over what we did. So everything was working, like I said. It was just a typo here. I had a labla instead of label, right? But that fixed, and then everything worked just fine. But there is something else that we need to do here. So we're getting this cluster description, and we should put that description here, and that would be just kube conf dot, and we need to go and add that here. That's really weird that I can just not put that there. Pig TION. And just to be sure, because that has to be the response model that we get from here. The request, it's this thing that we want to look at, and it is called a config description. Cool. So we get the config description, and let's put it here. conf.config description. Nice. And yeah, I know, it'll have to reload. Boom. There's a home cluster used for dev work. Put that in there and submit. And when we refresh this page, there we go. Local minikube cluster. This is a home cluster used for dev use. And then we have the production cluster. This is a production cluster out in the cloud. These come from the configuration file, so unless we actually get a different configuration file, these aren't going to change much. But yeah, there we go. That's that feature pretty much done and dusted. Alright, I'm actually pretty happy. Hopefully I can edit this down to something that is kind of fun and digestible to watch. And yeah, I'll see you guys in the next one. Please remember to comment, rate this a thumbs up if you liked it, and subscribe. And yeah, hopefully this kind of format is a little bit better. Just as a little background magic, movie magic kind of stuff, I figured out how to do different channels, so the music and the mic and everything is on their own separate audio channels now. So hopefully I can actually do some editing so that maybe the audio and the music isn't all jumbled up when I fast forward this stuff. We'll see. I'll let you guys be the judge of it when it's out, I guess, and I'll tell you how it went in the next video. Have a good one, and bye bye.